Hey everyone, I'm the Broken Meeple. Win or lose, I'm going to be honest with you. And we just got a little quickie here, Piñatas. Because, well, you've seen recently I did my top 10 trick takers, and everybody was starting to recommend trick takers to me. I mean, thank you for that. That's what I asked for. And one of the ones that came up on the list was this one called Piñatas. This is a relatively new one from Reiner Knizia of all people. I wasn't even aware he was still designing games, frankly. And it's meant to be an intro-style, trick taker. It's relatively simple rules, cutesy artwork, and apart from that, I knew nothing about it going in. It was just basically a case of, oh, okay, so you don't want to be the last one in, you want to be slightly before that? It's like, okay, I'm intrigued. So, I've given it a few plays, and it's time to see what's what.
Could someone please whack my hernia back in?
So not a huge amount to explain here. You've got a bunch of sweets here, which are basically the point tokens, and it's the first person to reach 25, they win. The way it works is that you play as many rounds as necessary before somebody hits 25, and for the most part, the trick-taking rules work the same way as every other trick-taking game you've seen. So you will start off with a hand of cards. They come in 5 different suits. They're numbered from 0 to either like 10, 12, 15, depending on the player count. And basically, one person will lead with a card, and everybody else has to follow suit. Highest card wins the trick. Standard trick-taking rules as normal. Except this time you're not predicting how many tricks you win. That is, normally the case with a lot of these recent trick takers. You're also not necessarily trying to win as many tricks as you can either. This one's a little bit different. The idea with this one is that when you win 3 tricks in front of yourself, so 1, 2, 3. Once you've won 3, you're out of the round, and at that point you score a point for every trick that the other players have won. If you are the last one out of the round, you only score for the tricks you've won. So you will score less points than anybody else, particularly around the table, well, typically anyway, will score. So what you're aiming to be is the second to last person out of the round. Because that one will, that player will score more points than anybody else because everybody else will have won a decent amount of tricks at that point, and whoever is last is going to only score for themselves, so it won't be anywhere near as much. And then once you've collated the points and basically taken all your tokens for it, you rinse and repeat. The only difference being that the loser gets to choose what trump suit is next. It's random to begin with, but then after that they can just pick a token and choose which one is, and they lead. The only other little minor rules to explain are a couple of special cards. You've got 5 and 7s, which work in the same fashion. Basically, if you win with either of these 2 cards, then you split the trick into 2, and it effectively counts as 2 separate tricks for points. That's good in the sense that it's technically worth more points, but also bad because it might take you out of the round too early, but then it also could take you out of the round surprisingly, so it's really down to a timing aspect here. But the one to really watch out for is 0, because for the suit that it's the same colour of, so in this case the pink suit, it will beat the highest card of that suit. So let's say we're playing with the 15 cards, all the way up to 15, 0 will beat the 15 in its suit. So it can be launched as kind of a bit of a surprise attack, but then it could also be used against you if you are actively trying to lose the trick and somebody plays the 15 so that you win it instead. So you have to be a little bit careful with this one, which is quite a neat little card. But other than that, the rest of the deck is pretty straightforward. You won't deal out the entire deck, so there is there is imperfect information. Some of them will be out of the round. And once it's all said and done, right, I managed to win 7 points from this particular round. Shuffle them up, go again, choose a trump, keep going until somebody goes out of a round with 25 points. At that stage, they win automatically. You don't even bother finishing the round. So, yeah, pretty straightforward little trick-taking game. And, components-wise, pretty nice as well. It's a small square box. You've got cool, nice-looking, sort of colourful, sweet tokens for the points. It looks nice. All the cards have got nice artwork on them as well, which basically, if you didn't explain to anybody that this was a game about piñatas, you would basically be just looking at these cutesy animals getting, well, basically exploding from getting bashed. You get to the higher ones and you see eyeballs and limbs flying off. And yes, they are meant to be piñatas, so it's taken in jest, but you could take this down to real dark territory if you didn't actually tell anybody what the theme was and then showed them the cards. But it's cutesy and it's nice, and it does look very colourful. Everything's easily distinguished. I guess maybe it would have been nice if there was a little bit more correlation to it. Like it's not always, it doesn't necessarily feel apparent that it's going from 0 to 15 in terms of the progression of these piñatas, but no big deal. They look nice. The card stock is pretty good. I don't feel it's a game that desperately needs sleeving. It's just a nice little production in a nice box that's very colourful. It will stand up on the shelf, and the rules, as I say, are not complicated. So from a trick-taking standpoint, rules-wise nice and simple, so that's a positive in itself. You know, it doesn't take a lot to learn this game. Teaching people how to play it is pretty straightforward. You know, you just have to contend with that whole 0 and the 5-7 cards. And the 5 and 7 in particular are a little bit on the fiddly side. There's no reference aid to remind people how they work, and it would have been nice if there was something on the card that maybe reminded you of them, because, you know, they've only got like a little symbol to stand them out from all the others, and it's essentially like black instead of white, and the 0 isn't even that. The 0 is literally just the 0, so there's nothing on that card that distinguishes it really from the rest of the pack. So it would have been nice if maybe there was just something a little bit clearer on both of those cards to explain that this is what happens when you win with these cards. I mean, they did it in Fox of the Forest, I'm sure they could have done it here, so it's a bit of a pain that you do get some like brand new players to trick-taking who are already trying to learn how trick-taking works, and then they get the card and they forget, oh yeah, that's what that 5 does. Yeah, because the iconography really does not give you any real clear indication of what it's meant to be.
I don't get it.
Game only takes 30 minutes, so it's nice and quick, you know, shouldn't take too long to finish. But are there any negatives? Yes, and they're slightly big ones. The game goes from 2 to 5 players, and I think the player scaling is a bit on the iffy side. 2 players is pretty much the same as a 3-player game. Same cards, it's just that you keep going until somebody wins 7 tricks and that's it. I mean, it's pretty bare bones, there's not much in it. The 3-player, there's just kind of not enough sort of interaction around the table. It is just 3 of you. So this feels more like a 4-player game. I think 4-player game is where it shines. 5, you'd think, oh, in most trick takers, 5 is pretty good, but 5 obviously increases the chaos factor for going around and seeing if you win a trick or not. But also the points. The points are a little bit inflated in 5 players, because bear in mind, you're scoring the amount of like tricks that other people around the table have won. So, and the points, the total to win the game is still 25 no matter what. So you play a 3-player game, right? You know, all of you would go out on 9 tricks, which means that if somebody wins 3 tricks and goes out, and then everybody else wins 2 tricks, and you eventually go out on the 3rd, that means that basically in a 3-player game, you can win 5 points. That's kind of like your maximum. You know, because the person who was last is only going to have 1 or 2 points to themselves. The person who went out first might get, you know, 2 or 3, maybe 4 if they're lucky. But the person who goes like second to last in a 3-player game is only going to get about 5 points. In a 5-player game, if you imagine that multiple players are going to get 2 tricks or 3 tricks and then go out in that, you're winning like, you know, somewhere between like 8 to 10 points in a 5-player game because of the sheer amount of tricks that other people could have won. So that means that getting to 25 takes longer in a 3-player game in terms of number of rounds, whereas in a 5-player game, it doesn't take that long at all, because by the time when you've had a good round in a 5-player game, you're already more than a third of the way there. There is just no way to recover from a bad start. So when you lose a round, you go last. When you finish last, you're only going to get like a minor amount of points. And in a 4 or 5-player game, if you come last once, your chances of winning are already pretty slim. You come last twice, you cannot win. You cannot physically pull it back. In a 3-player game, I've only played this once 2-player and I wasn't that fun with it, but in a 3-player game, you've maybe got like 1 extra game in lieu that you could possibly lose and then come back. But honestly, if somebody doesn't come last in any of their games, chances are they're the ones that are going to win easily. You can call the victor pretty much before the last round, and so the last round becomes incredibly anticlimactic. You know, there's a nice little fun dynamic between the players in the last round when they notice that a player is like, say, on 20, 21 points, and they got to get to 25, and it's like, right, we need to make certain this person goes out now, so make sure they win the tricks. That's fun and all, and it is cool to have like other players almost turn the game into a semi-co-op, try to think, like, we've got to make him do it. Let's see, if I play this one, that'll be cool, you play that. Right, we've made you win a trick, great. But easier said than done. You don't have a lot of control over the game. You have no idea what's in their hand. So how do you know that what you play is going to make them win the trick? It's nigh on impossible. So when somebody's only got to get 3 or 4 points before they, you know, win the game effectively and end the round, then, well, for crying out loud, it's not that it's not that easy to stab them. So you're pretty much like, alright, well, 90% likely that this person's going to win the game, but maybe we'll get lucky and they might not. So it just doesn't feel like going into the last round matters. You might as well just say, look, I'm on 18, he's barely on 8, you're on 22. For crying out loud, how the hell are we supposed to stop you? Let's just rinse and repeat. You've won, let's go with it from there. And that kind of sucks, really, in the last round of a game where you're trying to race to a certain number of points, where you feel that the person who's winning the race is so far ahead that you can't physically catch them up. And it's exasperated in a high player game because in one round, people have got like 6 to 8 points, something like that, and 69 points or whatever in a 5-player game, except for the one person on their own who might have won 2 or 3. That's already like miles behind. And let's say you play another round. Let's say that they only, they weren't last, but they still only got about 6 or so points. That person hasn't even broken double digits, but all the others are in their teens. The other person's just got no chance of catching them up, and all they did was lose one round. It's why 5-player in this game really doesn't work, and even then, there's just a problem with each player count. Apart from, I'd say, 4. 4 is kind of like the balance of the lot that works the best. 3 if you're pushing it, but 4, I suppose. But that, for a game that's between 2 and 5, that's incredibly fragile. And even then, you will still end up with this situation that the last round just doesn't feel like it's worth playing.
Certainty of death, small chance of success. What are we waiting for?
So Piñatas is a nice little light game, but yes, it looks good and it's simplistic and it's good for younger people and it's a nice intro to the trick-taking rules. But there are other games that aren't too complicated from a trick-taking standpoint, and for Reiner Knizia to make this kind of mistake with the whole scoring mechanism and the balance of the player counts and that, I mean, it's not like him to do that, but maybe it's about time that, he's designed a ton of games. Maybe it's about time he took a rest, because this could have been something that I could easily recommend to people, easily like a 7, 8 out of 10 or something. Could have even been higher, but, the last person I saw to, what was it, Wendy Yee, I think, gave it a 9 out of 10. But I'm sorry, no, not 9 out of 10. This is based on another game apparently, and she had a big connection to that game with her kids. So I think that must have influenced the rating on that one. This is, if you can call it a 7, barely, but nah. I'm sticking to a 6 out of 10. It's above average. It's a fine little light game because I can't get too hard up on a 30-minute little filler trick taker. It does look great. It is simple to play, and it does, act as a good introduction. So it's produced nicely and has some lightheartedness to it. But if you take a couple of minutes just to think about the scoring system in this, that bit doesn't work, and that spoils a lot of the enjoyment for me, because I don't like a game to basically tell me before the last round starts, you know what, you're basically screwed, rinse and repeat, go again. And basically, an uncatchable leader is not a good thing that you want in a trick-takey little card game. So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube and thumb it up on Board Game Geek when it goes live on the page. Check out the rest of my content. I've mentioned that I did a list of top 10 trick takers, so why don't you go and check that one out to see what's on that list. Maybe there's a better one for introductory purposes that you can glean from there. Also, check out the Patreon if you want to help support the channel. I don't get a lot of review copies. This literally was bought. I bought this one after my birthday to basically say, you know what, I fancy another little game. Sadly, it didn't measure up to expectations, but hey, it's thanks to the Patreons that I'm able to grab these games when I can, so that I can produce content for you. Until next time, remember, it's only a game, and I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple video. So take care, everyone.